So what does our emergency procedure look like? Well, very simply, we need to know how to treat heat illness and we need to know how to contact 911. So the very first thing we should do when we get out to a new site is survey that site. Where are we working? What are the entrances and exits to the site? And how does EMS get there? So when you do pick up the phone to dial 911, you need to also send someone to the entrance so that they can wait for 911 and bring EMS right to the victim of heat illness and treat them there and get them in the ambulance and out of there. So those are the first couple things we do. But let's take a look at how we treat these heat illnesses. If we've gotten to the point of exhaustion or stroke, both heat exhaustion or heat stroke, we need to consider this a medical emergency and we need to dial 911 immediately. At that point, we have two things that we have to determine. First is, did we see the person fall? If they are unconscious, did they fall? And if they did fall, did we see them fall? If we see them fall and we know that they did not hit their head, so maybe they were working on their knees and they just kind of slumped over, then we can determine the second thing, which is where's the nearest shade, and do we take them to the shade or do we bring the shade to them? Now, if we did not see them fall, we assume that there's a head injury and we bring the shade to them. And in fact, under any of these basically first aid responses, we should always try and bring the shade to them, unless of course there is some other issue there like fire ants or something that is immediate to their health and danger. However, this Good Samaritan thing is kind of complicated. So again, the best process here is to bring shade to them, get them covered in the shade, right? And then the next thing is we need to start the cooling effect. So if they are conscious or unconscious, at this point, we can start the cooling effect. And we're going to place cold compresses on the major arteries. So it's going to be our neck, our femoral artery in the groin area, right where our leg meets our groin. We're going to also do the chest. So I'd want to start with the neck and the femoral arteries, then the chest right over top of the heart to keep that cool. And then we're going to move into our armpits, our elbow pits, and our knee pits right behind the knee. Those are going to be our key areas where we're going to cool down the body the quickest and most effective. The next is if they are conscious. Now, if they're unconscious, you cannot do this. I'm going to repeat. Unconscious, you cannot do this next step. If they're conscious, they can start to drink water. If they're unconscious, you do not give them water. You do not give them food. So only if they're conscious. I need to make that extremely clear, because you could end up choking them and killing them in the event that you give someone that's unconscious food or water. You should never give a heat illness patient food because, again, that digestive process has to work and that heats up the body. So if they are conscious, they're awake, you can give them water and they should drink as much water as possible. That water should be well below their body temperature, right? We don't want to give them hot water. We want to give them cold water, cool water. Now, there's a lot of controversy about, do I apply ice? Do I give them ice cold water or cool water? At this point, it's highly unlikely that you're going to shock the system. There is controversy around it, but you're probably not going to have super ice cold water or ice on hand for you. So give them what water you have. It should be cool, and drink as much as possible. The next thing is, if they are unconscious or even conscious and you've applied the cold compresses and you have a lot of water left over, you can start kind of the process where you're going to open up the clothing a little bit to release that heat, especially if we're wearing coveralls or some of our work clothes are very thick and we want to release as much heat as possible. Take the electronics out of their pockets, their wallets out of their pockets. Make sure that stuff stays safe and is not going to get damaged by water, but then start to douse their body with this water to help cool them down. So again, cold compresses in the major arteries, and then we'll move it. I wonder how long I can hold that. So right here in the knee pit, and then we'll move into dousing the body with water. We've called 911. They're on their way. We have someone at the front to guide them back. That's the important part for our emergency procedures. So with that, you can do those things, and that should help reduce the body temperature. And that's the most important thing. We got to get the body cooled down as fast as possible and get them emergency medical help.